Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching us here on Cairo local time. And actually today nearly 5 million students started their new academic year in all types of public and private schools, as well as in the Japanese schools. The Ministry of Education took all the necessary measures to prepare for the new academic year. Also, the parents were getting prepared for this new academic year by various ways, notably in their nutrition. Perhaps moms are paying extra attention to the nutrition of their children. And as a parent, your big job would be to make sure that your child is well nourished and growing well. Of course, eating healthy during the school time, avoiding unhealthy snacks. And you want to nurture the relationship with food between your child and food, because most kids tend to go for unhealthy food. Also, growing a healthy child literally is one of the most important things you will do as a parent. Perhaps this is the most important challenge for parents, because healthy eating is the backbone of a child. And we are honored to host today our distinguished guest, Dr. Habiba Hassan. She is an expert in health and nutrition policy and development, and she is also member of the National Nutrition Sciences Committee at the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. Great having you with us here, Doctor. It's a great pleasure. We're very much honored. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Well, of course, I think that we'll be voicing the concerns and questions of most parents, especially moms, when it comes to the nutrition of kids at school. But first, we're going to watch a special report and we'll be right back.
The official school year will officially start for most schools in Egypt on September 21st, except for KG1 and KG2 Primary 1 and Primary 2 pupils, who started their first day of school on Wednesday. On Wednesday, nearly 5 million pupils started studying in all types of public and private schools, as well as in the Japanese schools. Minister of Education Tariq Shawki will hold a press conference on Thursday to announce the start of the new academic year at the ministry's headquarters. Students in the new education system will study a new Arabic curriculum with a book dubbed Iktashif or Discover to include material on math, science and social studies. They will also study a book dubbed Connect for the English language. The Ministry of Education announced earlier this school term for students of the new educational system begins on September 11th and ends on May 28th. The system includes more practical activities for students rather than depending on studying material only. The ministry added that students will sit in a circle instead of lined up benches as usual to allow for more interaction and teamwork. Schools were instructed by the ministry not to hold any exams for students until the third primary grade to avoid pressure from an early age, adding that teachers should continuously evaluate the students' learning away from exams throughout the school year. The ministry added that the Center for Curriculum Development and Educational Materials developed a general curriculum framework based on the skills which was approved by the United Nations. The ministry stressed that training programs for kindergarten teachers and first primary grade teachers will continue on the new education system. The ministry announced that a separate textbook for mathematics had been prepared for the second primary grade under the new educational system beside Iktashif. The ministry warned schools of abstaining from handing over the curriculum book to students who have not yet paid their fees or discriminating in any way towards them. The Ministry of Education has issued a circular statement to all educational directors in order to prepare for the new school year. The statement stressed the need to distribute all teachers to schools so as to fill the
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps the issue of nutrition is very important to all parents, especially moms. Apart from the excitement of the first day at school for both the parents and the children, the issue of nutrition is perhaps the challenging. If you are a mom watching, Perhaps you would be on a group for mothers and you would be asking other moms, what should I put in my children's lunchbox? What should they eat? What do you think? Do you have new ideas? And so on. The issue of nutrition is actually very important, and therefore we're very much happy to have with us Dr. Habiba here. Dr. Habiba, in your opinion, the significance of healthy eating habits before even going to school. I believe that the eating habits should be encouraged by the parents for their children before even the stage of going to school. What do you think of that?
It is terribly important to start healthy eating habits as immediately after birth. But I will not go into that detail because this is another subject. But what is important in the early days of life are the regular meal times. So when a mother is breastfeeding and the regularity of the breastfeeding times, when you say feeding on demand, if the child cries, give, yes, but if a mother is careful, the child makes his own routine, sleeps, his sleep pattern and his eating pattern are established in the early days of life. Now what happens that if you don't respect what we call the biological clock, which is the clock inside the body of every person, it is regulated and set during infancy and childhood with a regular sleep pattern and a regular eating pattern.
Yes.
So this is the very beginning of food habits. But food habits are established during childhood. A mother has to be very careful not to, if the child is starting a bad food habit, like too many sweets, for instance, that is bad because it will destroy his teeth and it will make him grow fat, unnecessary calories. So you have to, let's say, instill, we use the word inculcate, which means you start the habit very early so that it is done unconsciously.
Okay.
And the child seeks it. It's finished. I mean, even if somebody will give him sweets, he doesn't care because he doesn't crave for sweets anymore. You see, so it has to be very, it's very important. Now the school has a role in starting and continuing and encouraging good food habits. So when we see the canteens in school that sell over-rich snacks, that is wrong, you see, because the school is an environment that encourages and promotes food habits. So we have to be very careful of the role of the home and of the school.
Yes. Doctor, healthy eaters aren't born, they are actually grown. Would you tell us when exactly should we begin to adapt to healthy feeding for our children?
Very early, very early, because for instance, apart from being a nutritionist, I'm also a pediatrician. Okay. So in pediatrics, we recommend the mothers never to sweeten any food that is given to children with what we call outside sugar. It can be natural sugar. Yes. If it's a sweet, a fruit or a sweet food, okay. But don't sweeten any, let's say in the hot summer, babies are given caraway water or aniseed water in the bottle or to drink. Or let's say if you give them even lemonade, don't put too much sugar.
So they don't get used to the taste of sugar.
Exactly. And
so
sugar,
they don't crave it afterwards.
Sugar is very bad. One of the biggest, what we call the 3 poisons of the 21st century are sugar, salt, and fat. And excess of any of these can be even called, can harm the body, and we would call it, it's not called a poison, but it is very harmful for the body.
Yes. What children should eat and what should they avoid?
In feeding children, natural foods are recommended. Keep away from all tinned and processed foods. And food these days is not only processed, we call it hyper-processed. So you can have a piece of cake, and if you read the label carefully, it's supposed to have eggs and milk and this. All of that is synthetic. They're egg replacements and milk replacements, and this is not good for children.
Not natural ingredients.
You need, the first rule is natural ingredients. A second rule, keep away from processed foods.
Okay.
You have heard about the big noise about what the luncheon and all the preserved, the processed meats.
Yes.
To preserve them, you have something called nitrites, and these are harmful for children.
Okay.
So what happens is that if you are an adult and you eat once a food that is not very good or not recommended, it will not harm you. Your youth, you have grown, you have developed, you're already an adult. But a child is forming his bones, is forming his blood, is forming his body. He is still, and he has all his life in front of him. So if he develops a taste or a habit for a bad food, it will harm him over a longer period of life, of years.
Yes.
So this is why it's very careful. You have to be very careful in feeding healthy foods to children.
What type of foods and drinks as well?
Drinks, it's another thing.
But let's focus on food, because I think that focusing on vegetables and fruits and
natural foods, first of all,
yes.
No tin to foods, no hyper-processed foods, all those fancy packaged foods, and the most important, of course, thank you for mentioning it, are the fruits and vegetables, because they contain all the minerals and vitamins that the child needs for growth, for his bones, for his blood, for everything. So
what about drinks as well?
Drinks are a big problem in Egypt, because I don't think all homes know the damage that drinks do to children. Those concentrated or little boxes with fruit, what is called fruit juices. The sweetener, unless it's a very expensive called natural juice, no additives, the color can be artificial, the flavor is artificial, the sugar is artificial, the sweetener is artificial, and all of these are harmful for children, and they give him excess calories. The other thing are the
Sodas.
what we call the sodas.
Yes.
The sodas, the carbonated drinks are not recommended at all. So actually, for instance, the European Commission has passed a law that all anything that is sold at school does not contain any juices or any sodas, only water.
Only water.
So it is always recommended that children are encouraged to develop the habit of drinking water when they are thirsty. Not a soda and not a juice.
Okay. Now, in the beginning of this month, children started going to school. What are the tips that you would like to give to mothers? Because they are usually preoccupied with the idea of the lunchbox and everything. So what would you advise mothers to
The
do?
very first thing, which unfortunately is a habit common to all Egyptians and in all wakes of life, is no breakfast. That is the biggest mistake.
Yes.
The child must have something before he goes to school. Now, what the children and the mothers don't understand is that during sleep, the body is a big laboratory. The liver cleans up the blood and sends all the waste material to the kidney gets all the waste material out, and you need to drink, the minute you wake up, at least a glass full of liquid, which is the milk, the tea, the water, anything, to flush
Your body.
all what your body has produced. This is,
Preferably
nobody
water, I
knows
believe,
this.
doctor.
Pardon?
Preferably water.
Preferably water. But light tea with milk is fine, because not everybody drinks water. They want something hot. But breakfast before school is the biggest challenge to all mothers, to have their children eat something that will take them across till the next, let's say, snack or meal during the school day.
But most children wake up you know, in a hurry to catch the bus, and they don't have time for breakfast. And perhaps
that is the biggest this is why I tell you it is the biggest mistake. I mean, most mothers are advised to prepare breakfast before they go to sleep so that they don't waste time. Then we come back to, I told you there's a partnership between sleep pattern and eating pattern. They should sleep early and wake up in good time. That is an advice.
Another advice I received as a parent, if your children resist the idea of breakfast, insist on a big spoon of honey and a cup of milk. That would be, is that true? That would be somehow enough.
I will tell you what, it's always said, the nutritional science says, you have to have a piece of bread with it. Put the honey on a piece of bread, even a little piece.
Like a toast or something.
Because the honey, the sugar in the honey is metabolized, it is broken down and absorbed very quickly. The energy disappears. So he will feel hungry, or his blood sugar may go down during the class. He will lose his attention, the child will lose his attention, and because the honey or the sugar is broken down and absorbed very quickly, it disappears. But carbohydrate, bread, takes a much slower time to be digested and absorbed. So it will last him, give him calories enough till the next meal.
So that would be a nice meal, a piece of toast, a cup of milk and a spoon of honey. That would keep him going.
Honey is not important. It can be molasses with tahina, if they like it. It can be cheese, it can be anything.
Cereals
or an egg, if he wants.
Yes.
But anything, but the important thing is actually is the bread in the morning. They have to have a slowly digested food that can take him up for a few hours in school.
Some also advise fool or fava beans for children, since again it stays for a while. Is that advisable or not? Fool sandwiches, fava beans.
Fool, I don't see many families having fool before going to school.
Yes.
And you know the proverb, if you eat fool, it slows your brain.
Yes.
That's an Egyptian proverb.
But I don't know, especially when guys, I mean boys like they prefer food sometimes.
It is absolutely fine. It is very highly nutritious and it will last them till midday.
Exactly, that's the thing. Why healthy nutrition is important for children during the school day, doctor?
Because if you don't have food, is broken down and is translated into sugars that keep up the level of sugar in your blood at a certain level that your brain needs, because the brain uses the sugar, the glucose in the blood to function. So they will lose attention. They will be, you will find the child irritable in the class and losing attention. And we had extreme cases of many years ago, before the government insisted on the school feeding program, was that the children fainted because they didn't have dinner. They didn't eat at night, the night before. So no dinner, no breakfast. So their sugar level was so low that the brain couldn't function, and they even fainted. That was very rare. But it is an alert. It's an extreme case of low sugar going to the brain. The brain operates, it feeds on sugar in the blood.
The most important question for moms, what should I put in the lunchbox? What should the lunchbox contain during the day? This is the question in all the minds of moms.
So it's a question that refers to a certain social strata or social level. So it's usually a sandwich wrapped in a piece of paper or in a plastic bag. But when you say a lunchbox, I'd like to make a difference. Lunchbox is an English word, and usually in countries where the school day is longer than lunch, goes beyond lunchtime, Lunchtime in Europe is
around 12 or 1.
Exactly.
But it stays until 3, I believe. Or Those schools that you're talking about.
Yes. So the schools that we are talking about, it has to be a real, let's say, midday meal. Let me
Okay.
call it a midday meal. So putting in the lunchbox, you need something that has, let's say, protein and carbohydrates and vegetables or fruit. So you need one piece of fruit, and you can have a sandwich with cheese, or, I mean, I personally, I wouldn't recommend that you have, let's say, meat or anything, but you can have a boiled egg. You can have any source of protein, especially that the child loves. Don't go against the child's wishes, because they will throw it and they will not eat it.
But they always like fried chicken or that type, so
Fried are not recommended because of the
fried.
fat.
So here comes the point that the mother has to somehow
Because of the
intervene.
fat, you can
Yes, it's heavy.
you can make roast meat and cut slices and make a meat sandwich.
Yes, tuna, I believe, also is
Tuna
very
sandwich,
healthy.
sardine sandwich. This you can make.
Okay.
Even, I mean, not all children like cheese, for instance, but cheese is very important because of the calcium. It's a
Yes.
very high calcium content.
Yes.
But also the fruit is important. One dry fruit in season. It can be a banana, it can be a mandarin, it can be our tangerine, it can be grapes. Now the grapes are all over the place. And then I would recommend something very important.
Which is,
Wash the hands before they eat.
of course, of course.
That is terribly important.
Yes, because they play and they use their hands and it's full of bacteria, and then they use it to
Exactly.
eat, and then they get
They
sick.
have to wash their hands before and the teachers at school should
Encourage them to do
encourage them
so.
and see that they do it.
Yes. I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Habiba Hassan Wasif, expert at health and nutrition policy and development, and also member of the National Nutrition Sciences Committee of the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. Great honor having you with Dr. Habiba.
It's my
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the useful tips you gave us today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us in this edition of Cairo Local Time. I hope that you have benefited from the valuable information and tips that Dr. Habiba gave us today. Until we meet you again, I'm Hana Al-Hamalawi signing off for now.